Hey there, friends. Before we dive into this super cool story, I've got a fun question for you. Have you ever met someone who acted like they were the boss of everyone? Maybe they told people what to do all the time. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from today. Oh, and if you love stories where the quiet person surprises everyone, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on more. It was a bright, sunny morning in Maple Grove. This was a cozy little neighborhood where houses had neat lawns and kids played in the streets. Everyone seemed to know each other, or at least they thought they did. Maple Grove was the kind of place where people waved hello, shared cookies, and chatted about the weather. But there was one person who was about to shake things up in a big way. Her name was Sarah Miller. Sarah was new in town. She lived in a small house on the corner with a tidy garden and a bright red mailbox. Every day she'd mow her lawn, water her flowers, or sit on her porch with a glass of lemonade. She'd smile at the kids riding their bikes and wave at the neighbors walking their dogs. To most people, Sarah was just the new lady who kept to herself. Nobody paid much attention to her. She didn't go to the big neighborhood parties or chat for hours at the mailbox. She was quiet, and that was fine with her. But here's the thing, Sarah had a secret. A really, really big secret. Nobody in Maple Grove had any idea who she really was. Not the kids, not the neighbors, not even the nosy folks who liked to gossip. Her secret was like a hidden treasure, locked away and waiting for the right moment to come out. And when it did, it was going to change everything in this sleepy little town. Now, Maple Grove wasn't perfect. Sure, it looked nice with its green grass and shiny cars, but it had a problem, a big one. Her name was Karen Thompson. Karen was the boss of the Homeowners Association, or HOA for short. That's a group of people who make rules for the neighborhood, like how tall your grass can be or what color your house can be painted. Sounds simple, right? Well, not with Karen in charge. Karen acted like she was the queen of Maple Grove. She walked around with a clipboard, pointing at things she didn't like. If someone left their trash can out for an extra day, Karen would slap a fine on them. If someone planted flowers that weren't on her approved list, she'd write them a mean note. One time, she even told a family they couldn't have a basketball hoop because it was too noisy. Can you believe that? Everyone in the neighborhood groaned when they saw Karen coming. Her shiny shoes clicked on the sidewalk and her eyes were always looking for trouble. She'd stop at houses and say things like, "Your fence is too short," or "Those curtains are ugly." People were scared to argue with her. If they tried, Karen would just talk louder and wave her rule book in their faces. She loved being in charge, and she made sure everyone knew it. The kids in Maple Grove had their own name for her, HOA Karen. They giggle and whisper it when she wasn't looking, but even they knew not to mess with her. Karen had a way of making life hard for anyone who didn't follow her rules. She'd send letters, call meetings, and even tell people they could get in big trouble if they didn't listen to her. It was like she wanted everyone to bow down to her just because she had that clipboard. But Sarah was different. She didn't seem bothered by Karen at all. When Karen walked by her house, Sarah would just smile and wave like nothing was wrong. That drove Karen crazy. She wasn't used to people ignoring her. Most folks would apologize or promise to fix whatever she complained about. But Sarah, she just kept doing her thing, mowing her lawn, watering her flowers, and sipping her lemonade. Karen didn't like that one bit. From the moment Sarah moved in, Karen decided she was trouble. "Who does she think she is?" Karen would mutter to her friends. "She doesn't belong here." Karen didn't care that Sarah's house was neat or that her garden was pretty. She didn't like how Sarah stayed so calm and quiet. It was like Sarah wasn't afraid of her, and that made Karen mad. One day, Karen stood in front of Sarah's house, staring at her red mailbox. She scribbled something on her clipboard and shook her head. "This mailbox is all wrong," she said to herself. "It's not the right size. She's breaking the rules." Karen didn't even check the rule book. She just wanted a reason to pick on Sarah. That's how she worked. She'd find something, anything, to make people feel small. The neighbors noticed Karen watching Sarah's house more and more. Some of them felt bad for Sarah. "Poor new lady," they'd whisper. "She doesn't know what she's in for." Others just shook their heads and stayed quiet. They learned it was easier to let Karen do what she wanted. Nobody wanted to be her next target. But Sarah wasn't like the others. She wasn't scared. She wasn't worried. She'd see Karen glaring at her mailbox or peeking over her fence, and she'd just smile. It was a small smile, but it had a spark in it, like she knew something Karen didn't. And that spark, it was a hint that Sarah's secret was bigger than anyone could guess. See, Maple Grove thought it was just another quiet neighborhood. The kids thought Sarah was just another grown-up, and Karen thought Sarah was just someone she could push around. But they were all wrong. Sarah wasn't just the new lady on the corner. She was someone important, someone powerful, someone who'd been watching and waiting for the right time to show who she really was. Every morning, Sarah would wake up, make her coffee, and look out her window. She'd see the kids playing, the dogs barking, and Karen marching around with her clipboard. And every morning she'd think to herself, not yet, but soon. She wasn't in a rush. She was patient, like a cat waiting to pounce. She knew Karen was up to no good, and she was ready to catch her when the time was right. The neighbors didn't know it, but Sarah was keeping track of everything. She'd notice when Karen yelled at someone for a silly rule. She'd hear the whispers about fines and mean letters. She'd see the way people looked tired of Karen's bossy ways. Sarah didn't say much, but she saw it all, and she was writing it down like a detective in a mystery book. Sometimes Sarah would sit on her porch and watch the sun set. The sky would turn pink and orange, and the neighborhood would get quiet. She'd think about her secret and how it was going to change things. She wasn't here to cause trouble. She was here to fix things, to make Maple Grove a better place where people didn't have to be afraid of someone like Karen. But nobody knew that yet. To them, Sarah was just the lady with the red mailbox and the friendly wave. They didn't know she was about to turn their world upside down. They didn't know her secret was like a firecracker, ready to pop and light up the whole neighborhood. And they definitely didn't know that Karen, with her clipboard and her rules, was about to learn a lesson she'd never forget. As the days went by, the tension in Maple Grove grew. Karen kept picking on people and Sarah kept watching. The kids kept playing, but they'd glance at Sarah's house, wondering why Karen was so mad at her. The neighbors kept whispering, waiting to see what would happen next. It was like a storm was coming, and Sarah was right in the middle of it. But Sarah wasn't worried, she was ready. Her secret was safe for now, tucked away like a present waiting to be opened. And when the time came, she'd unwrap it for everyone to see. Karen thought she was the queen, but Sarah, she was the one who'd show everyone what real power looked like. So that's where our story starts, in a quiet little neighborhood with a big problem and an even bigger secret. Maple Grove was about to learn that things aren't always what they seem, and Sarah Miller, she was about to show them all that the quiet ones are sometimes the strongest. What do you think is gonna happen next? Can you guess Sarah's secret? Stick around, because this story's just getting started and it's gonna be a wild ride. Karen Thompson had been watching Sarah Miller from the very first day she moved into Maple Grove. Karen was the boss of the homeowners association and she thought she ruled the whole neighborhood. She didn't like Sarah one bit. "That new woman doesn't belong here," Karen would grumble to her friends at the HOA meetings. She'd cross her arms and frown, like Sarah had done something awful just by existing. Sarah's house was super neat. Her grass was always trimmed, her flowers were bright, and her red mailbox stood straight and shiny. But Karen didn't care about any of that. She didn't like how Sarah stayed so quiet. Everyone else in Maple Grove followed Karen's rules. If she told them to paint their fence or move their trash cans, they'd jump to do it. But Sarah, she didn't act scared. She didn't bow down. And that made Karen madder than anything. Karen decided she was going to teach Sarah a lesson. She wanted Sarah to know who was in charge. So one sunny afternoon, Karen put on her fanciest shoes, grabbed her clipboard, and marched right up to Sarah's doorstep. She held a piece of paper in her hand and waved it like it was a flag. "This is a violation notice," she shouted, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "Your mailbox is half an inch too tall. Fix it by tomorrow, or you'll have to pay a $500 fine." Sarah opened her door and looked at Karen. She didn't yell or argue. She just smiled, nice and polite, and said, "I'll look into it." Then she closed the door softly. That was it. No begging, no promises, no fuss, just a calm smile and 4 little words. Karen's face turned red. She wasn't used to this. Nobody in Maple Grove ever talked back to her like that, or worse, acted like they didn't care. How dare this new lady ignore her? Karen stomped back to her house, muttering under her breath. She was already thinking of new ways to make Sarah sorry. But here's the thing, Sarah wasn't worried at all. Behind her calm face, she was as cool as a cucumber. She knew something Karen didn't, something big, something that would turn all of Karen's mean tricks upside down. Sarah had a secret, and it was like a superhero power she was keeping hidden, but she wasn't ready to use it yet. She was waiting for just the right moment, like a kid saving their best toy for a special day. The next day, Karen was back at it. She walked past Sarah's house, glaring at the mailbox. She scribbled notes on her clipboard and shook her head. "Still not fixed," she said to herself, even though it had only been a few hours. Karen didn't really care about the mailbox. She just wanted to scare Sarah. She wanted everyone to see that nobody could ignore her rules. The neighbors started to notice. Some of them peeked out their windows, watching Karen march around Sarah's yard. "What's she doing now?" they'd whisper. They felt bad for Sarah, but they were too scared to say anything. Karen had a way of making life tough for anyone who crossed her. One time she fined a family for having a swing set that was too bright. Another time she told a guy his dog barked too loud. Who finds a dog? Karen, that's who. Sarah saw it all. She'd sit on her porch with her lemonade, watching Karen strut by. Every time Karen gave her a mean look, Sarah would just wave and smile. It was like she was saying, "Go ahead, try me." That drove Karen nuts. She wasn't used to someone staying so calm. Most people would have run to fix their mailbox or begged for forgiveness. But Sarah, she acted like Karen was just a noisy fly buzzing around. Karen started talking about Sarah at every HOA meeting. "She's trouble," Karen would say, pointing her pen at everyone. "She doesn't follow the rules. We need to do something about her." Her friends nodded, but some people in the room just looked at their shoes. They didn't like how Karen was picking on the new lady, but they didn't know what to do. Karen was loud and she always got her way. One evening, Karen went even further. She called a few neighbors and told them Sarah's house was suspicious. "I bet she's hiding something," Karen said. "Why else would she be so quiet?" Good neighbors join the HOA. Good neighbors follow the rules. The neighbors didn't know what to think. Sarah seemed nice, but Karen sounded so sure. Maybe she was right. Maybe Sarah was up to no good. But Sarah wasn't up to no good. She was up to something else entirely. Every time Karen tried to boss her around, Sarah would write it down in a little notebook. She'd jot down what Karen said, what she did, and how she acted. It was like Sarah was collecting clues, building a case. She wasn't mad or scared. She was smart. She knew Karen was being a bully, and she was getting ready to do something about it. The kids in the neighborhood started to notice too. They ride their bikes past Sarah's house and see Karen standing there, frowning. "Why HOA Karen so mad at her?" one kid asked. "I dunno," said another. "But Sarah's cool. She gave me a cookie once." The kids liked Sarah. She wasn't mean like Karen. She didn't yell at them for playing too loud or riding on the grass. They didn't know why Karen was picking on her, but they hoped Sarah would be okay. As the days went by, Karen got bossier. She'd stop by Sarah's house almost every day looking for something new to complain about. One day it was the mailbox. The next, it was a flower pot that was too big. Then she said Sarah's car was parked an inch too close to the curb. It was silly stuff, but Karen made it sound like Sarah was breaking every rule in the book. Sarah never argued. She'd listen to Karen's complaints, nod, and say something like, "Thanks for letting me know." Then she'd go back to her gardening or her lemonade. It was like Karen's words bounced right off her. That made Karen try even harder. She wanted Sarah to crack. She wanted Sarah to beg or move away. But Sarah wasn't going anywhere. Deep down, Sarah was smiling. Not because she liked Karen's bullying, but because she knew it wouldn't last forever. Her secret was like a key, and soon she'd use it to unlock the truth. Karen thought she was winning, but she was walking right into a trap. Every mean word, every fake rule, every angry glare, it was all adding up. And Sarah was keeping track of every bit of it. The neighborhood could feel something coming. It was like the air got heavier, like before a big storm. Karen was louder than ever, and Sarah was quieter than ever. The neighbors whispered, the kids watched, and everyone wondered what would happen next. Would Karen win? Would Sarah give up? Or was something bigger about to happen? Sarah knew the answer. She wasn't just the new lady with the red mailbox, she was someone who could change everything. And when the time was right, she'd show Karen and all of Maple Grove that bullies don't always get their way. Days went by in Maple Grove, and Karen Thompson got meaner than ever. She wasn't just picking on Sarah Miller anymore, she was trying to make everyone turn against her. Karen started whispering to the neighbors, saying Sarah's house was suspicious. "I bet she's hiding something bad," Karen would say, raising her eyebrows like she knew a big secret. "Why else would she be so quiet? Good people don't act like that." The neighbors didn't know what to think. Sarah seemed nice. She waved at everyone, kept her yard tidy, and even gave cookies to the kids sometimes. But Karen was loud and sure of herself. She made it sound like Sarah was up to no good. Some people started to wonder if Karen was right. Was Sarah really hiding something? Karen didn't stop there. She called a special meeting for the homeowners association. She sent emails to everyone saying they had to talk about problem residents. Guess who she was talking about? Yup, Sarah. That night, the community center was packed. People sat in rows, whispering to each other. Karen stood up at the front, holding her clipboard like it was a magic wand. "Sarah Miller is trouble," she said, her voice sharp. "I've heard she's breaking laws. We can't have people like that in Maple Grove. We need to take action." The room buzzed with chatter. Some neighbors nodded, but others looked uneasy. They didn't have any proof Sarah was doing anything wrong. Still, Karen kept talking, making Sarah sound like the worst person ever. "Her mailbox is wrong," she said. "Her flowers aren't approved. She doesn't even come to our meetings." Karen made it sound like those things were crimes. By the end, a few people were clapping, but most just wanted to go home. Sarah wasn't at the meeting. She didn't need to be. Word got back to her fast. One of the kids, a boy named Timmy, rode his bike to her house the next day. "Miss Sarah," he said, "Karen was talking about you last night. She said bad stuff." Sarah just smiled and handed him a glass of lemonade. "Thanks for telling me, Timmy," she said. "Don't worry about it." Timmy tilted his head, confused. Why wasn't Sarah mad? Why wasn't she scared? Instead of getting upset, Sarah stayed calm and kept watching. She noticed everything Karen did. Karen loved to boss people around like she was the queen of the neighborhood. If someone's grass was a little too long, Karen would bang on their door with a fine. If a kid left a toy in the yard, Karen would write a mean note. She'd twist the HOA rules to make them say whatever she wanted. Sarah saw it all, and she wasn't fooled. Sarah started keeping a little notebook. It was small, with a blue cover, and she carried it in her pocket. Every time Karen did something mean, Sarah would write it down. Like when Karen yelled at Mr. Jones for painting his fence blue, or when she fined Mrs. Lopez for having a birdhouse. Sarah wrote the date, what happened, and what Karen said. It was like she was building a puzzle, putting one piece in at a time. She wasn't in a hurry. She knew every note was important. The kids in the neighborhood started to talk about Sarah more. They ride their bikes past her house and wave. "She's nice," one girl said. "Karen's just mean." Another kid nodded. "Yeah, but Karen's scary. I hope Sarah's okay." They didn't know what was going on, but they could tell something big was coming. It was like when you know a storm about to hit, even if the sky's still clear. Then things got wild. One morning, a police car rolled into Maple Grove and stopped right in front of Sarah's house. The neighbors peeked out their windows, eyes wide. Karen was standing on the sidewalk, smirking like she'd won a prize. She held a piece of paper in her hand, waving it so everyone could see. "That's what happens when you don't follow the rules," she shouted, loud enough for the whole street to hear. People leaned closer to their windows. What was going on? A police officer got out of the car and walked to Sarah's door. He knocked and Sarah answered. She was wearing her usual jeans and a t-shirt, her hair tied back. The officer handed her the paper. It looked fancy, with big letters at the top that said warrant. A warrant, that's something the police use when they think someone done something really bad. Karen had told the police Sarah was breaking the law right there in her own house. The neighbors gasped. Timmy, who was riding his bike nearby, stopped and stared. Even the dogs stopped barking. Everyone thought Sarah would be scared. A police car at your house? A warrant? That's a big deal. Most people would shake or cry or beg the officer to listen. But Sarah, she didn't do any of that. Sarah took the paper and read it slowly. She tilted her head like she was thinking hard. Then she looked up at the officer and said, "Interesting," just one word, calm and clear. Then she looked right at Karen, who was still smirking on the sidewalk. Sarah smiled, a small, quiet smile that made Karen's grin slip just a tiny bit. It was like Sarah knew something nobody else did. Why wasn't she worried? What was she up to? Karen tried to act tough. "You'll be sorry now," she yelled, but her voice wasn't as loud as before. She clutched her paper tighter like it would protect her. The officer tipped his hat to Sarah and walked back to his car. He didn't arrest her. He didn't yell. He just drove away. The neighbors were confused. Wasn't Sarah in trouble? Why was she so calm? Sarah closed her door and went back inside. She sat at her kitchen table and opened her notebook. She wrote down what happened, the police car, the warrant, Karen's shouting. She didn't look mad or scared. She looked like someone who was ready for whatever came next. That smile she gave Karen, it wasn't just a smile. It was a clue, a hint that Sarah had a plan. The neighborhood was buzzing now. People talked over their fences and on their porches. "Did you see the police?" one lady asked. Karen said Sarah's a criminal, another said, but some people weren't so sure. "Sarah doesn't seem bad," Mr. Jones said. "Maybe Karen's wrong." The kids were even more curious. Timmy told his friends, "Sarah wasn't scared at all, she's cool." Karen kept pushing. She told everyone the warrant proved she was right. "Sarah's days here are numbered," she said at the next HOA meeting. But every time she talked about Sarah, she sounded a little less sure. That smile Sarah gave her stuck in her head. It was like a puzzle piece that didn't fit. Sarah kept writing in her notebook. She watched Karen closer than ever. She saw how Karen scared people, how she made up rules, how she tried to make Sarah look bad. And every day Sarah got a little more ready. Her secret was still hidden, but it was getting closer to coming out. Like a flower about to bloom, it was almost time. Maple Grove could feel the change. Karen was loud, but Sarah was steady. Something big was building, and everyone wanted to know what would happen next. The very next day, everyone in Maple Grove got a surprising email from the Homeowners Association. It was short and serious. It said there would be an emergency meeting that evening at the community center. The email's words were clear. They needed to deal with Sarah Miller once and for all. The whole neighborhood started buzzing. What did it mean? Why Sarah? People whispered to each other over their fences and on their porches. Something big was about to happen. Karen Thompson, the bossy head of the HO, was practically jumping with excitement. She'd been telling everyone for weeks that Sarah was bad news. Now she thought she had the perfect plan to get rid of her. Karen had shown a piece of paper to some neighbors, the one she called a warrant. She said it proved Sarah was a criminal. "This will show everyone I'm right," Karen bragged. "Sarah will be kicked out for good." She couldn't wait to stand in front of everyone and wave that paper like a flag. That evening, the community center was packed. Every chair was taken and people stood along the walls, squeezing in to see what would happen. Kids sat on the floor near their parents, wide-eyed and curious. The air felt heavy, like before a thunderstorm. Everyone was talking in low voices, wondering what Karen was going to say. Timmy, the boy who'd told Sarah about the last meeting, was there with his mom. He whispered, "I hope Sarah's okay." Karen marched to the front of the room, her clipboard in one hand and her fake warrant in the other. She wore a big smile, like she'd already won. She tapped the microphone, making a loud thump that got everyone quiet. "Good evening, Maple Grove," she said, her voice loud and sharp. "Tonight, we're here to talk about Sarah Miller. She doesn't belong in our neighborhood and I've got proof."